Welcome to the official podcast of Cardinals Nation 24/7. Each week, we put a unique perspective on bringing you the latest news, updates, and rumors of the St. Louis Cardinals baseball organization. Join the nation and stay informed by liking us on Facebook, following us on Twitter, subscribing to us on the podcast form of your choice, and most of all, by subscribing to our YouTube channel. Thank you all for supporting the nation. Let's get things started. Here are your hosts, Jared Redwine, Chris Lawless, and Larry Cox.
Hello, Cardinal fans, and welcome to this episode of the Cardinals Nation 24/7 video podcast on YouTube. I'm Jared Redwine, joined as always by my friends and co-hosts, the living legend Larry Cox, and the one and only founder of Cardinals Nation 24/7, Chris Lawless. Good evening, my friends. How are you guys?
All right.
Doing great. Waiting for opening day, which is right around the corner.
Day right around the corner. Thursday, early game. A lot of people are going to be calling in sick, not feeling well. Hopefully everyone took advantage of the special offer from T-Mobile or whatever it was. I shared it on the page about getting MLB free for the year. That was kind of cool. Too bad I don't have that network.
Sprint and
Sprint and T-Mobile. Thank you, Larry. Larry pays attention to what I write, but I don't. So, guys, we're coming into the end. Spring training is finally over. I feel like we podcasted about spring training 45 times, but it was only 8. Thank you, Chris, for letting me know how many episodes we got. I didn't know that either. So the rosters are final. So real quick, Chris, what surprised you as far as the roster moves, and what kind of disappointed you? Who would you have liked to have seen, and who are you surprised they selected?
I'm a little bit surprised with Elaine Thomas not making the roster, but the way that, he performed during the spring, I think he kind of played himself out of a spot. Granted, he is on the taxi squad, but I was a little surprised with that, giving him a nod over a Dean. Dean did play well during spring training, but the other guys, like Oviedo, I was a little surprised with. I am happily surprised with Nagowski making the team. The way that he was hitting, I couldn't imagine looking him in the eyes, telling him, "You didn't make the team when we're going to carry a guy like Carpenter with his average." But
been our best offensive player on the team. Nagowski has been,
yeah. So I mean, he's earned it, and that would be probably the bright spot of who I'm glad got the call up. I mean, Justin Williams too, I was a little surprised with, but again, they were playing well, and I think the Cardinals want to take the hot bats with them into the season.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think maybe Williams, just because they wanted maybe another lefty bat option, especially after they found out he was going to have another option, which we talked about last week. I thought maybe that kind of opened the door for Thomas to come in, even though he had kind of slacked off on his performance. And Dean coming on really strong and hot at the end kind of shut Thomas out. Larry, coming to you now, I know you've got to be, you were probably hoping that a certain pitcher would make the team. I know Chris and I were also, but Parsons didn't make the team. I know he was your dark horse in the beginning, and you called him from the start and said he was going to be hot and had the best accuracy as far as all the scouts had reported. And you were right. He performed really well, but he didn't end up making the team. You think it was a performance deal, or it was more of a 40-man roster spot?
I think just being a roster invitee to spring training, I think that kind of made the difference, knowing that you had players on the 40-man that they had to send out as well. With the motion of Fernandez and guys like that, he had to be lights out, and I thought he pretty much was to his last outing. So he was kind of the shocker for me, but with the injury situation, COVID, you never know. He could be called back up shortly. And then the other one is Rondon. He was the other one that was really surprising. He had a really good spring, I thought. But then, again, he was another spring invitee, so he really had to overcome a lot of hurdles to get there.
Yeah, I think a lot of people pretty much knew what most of the team was going to be constructed of. But I, for one, am usually pretty, like I said, personally, I didn't think just the way the team makeup was, Thomas was going to make it. But I thought Parsons was going to be added to the 40-man. I thought he had a pretty good shot of making it. A guy named Matt Carpenter made the team. What are your thoughts? Are you surprised that Carp made the team?
Not surprised that he made the team. I know a lot of the members of our group on Facebook, they're definitely surprised. But, we've said the Cardinals are probably going to give him the month of April to really, I'm not going to say see what he can do. They obviously know what he can do at this point, but I guess kind of like a not necessarily the last hurrah, but at least giving him that go. Obviously, he's going to be a bench bat. Schultz come out and said that Edman's going to be their starter, and that Carpenter's kind of accepted his role. What that role is with a .054 average is, I don't know what that role really is, but now I'm not surprised that they're going to give him this last shot, but disappointed with his spring and seeing the struggles continue for sure.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I think you kind of have to take him north with you just because he's, making $18.5 million, and he has a $2 million buyout. If you do release him, you're giving away $20.5 million. What about you, Larry? I mean, it's probably no surprise to Carpenter. I mean, I got to bring him up because he's a hot topic, of course. But Carpenter, you think his spring numbers? I mean, I don't think he's going to be well. I don't think he's going to be as bad as his spring numbers looked. You expect to see somewhere in the middle?
I think you're seeing younger pitchers in spring training that you haven't seen before, not a lot of video on. Then now you get into the regular season. There's the more veteran arms come out. I think you have video on those guys, and then I think you might see a little bit of a different swing from him, or a different approach to the plate even. And my visitors here, and it just the difference is going to be, like you said, you're not going to give a guy $20.5 million based on spring training numbers, and he's earned the right years ago to maybe give it that one last shot, and you're paying him anyway. He's not really taking a roster spot because it is a bench position with other like Sosa. If you need a defensive player, you're going to bring Sosa in instead of him. So all you're looking for really is that left-handed at bat. So I don't see a big deal in it.
Yeah. Do you think he's going to get a fair amount of action to start early and see how that goes? Or do you think he's pretty much bench roll? It's Edman's job. Edman plays outfield. He'll be at second. But other than that, it'll be pinch hitting here and there.
I honestly think it's going to be just pinch hit. I really don't see him getting a lot of action because, again, you're going to have to get that 1-2 punch from Edman and DeYoung. They're going to have to establish that rapport, or your defense is going to be lacking later in the season. So you can't really come and go with that position at second base because there is that timing to turn those double plays and know each other's differences and who's going to cover the hole positions and stuff when they cut across there. I mean, you're taking away that Gold Glove of Wong. You're going to replace him with somebody that you haven't played with that much on DeYoung's side. The good news is with a guy over there to his right playing third base, covered a lot more ground than what we're used to. So
right.
He can shift a little bit. So that'll make up a lot of that distance. So
yeah, it's going to take a lot of hits away for sure.
And so I just think that Carp's going to be in the situation where they're going to give him less pressure at bats is what I think. I don't think you're going to see him come in with bases loaded and, we're relying on Carp with 2 outs and bases loaded. Oh, he struck out. Then now, you've blown his confidence even more. So I think it's going to be low-key situations, blowouts and such, maybe late replacements where they're up or down by several runs.
Yeah.
One of the top I've seen on Twitter, too, was, and I was a little surprised with, was I don't know the source, but supposedly Schultz has said Tommy Edman is going to be the backup center fielder. To where, Carlson's going to start as your center fielder, but instead of moving maybe an O'Neill over if need be, that Edman's going to be seeing some time at center. So that kind of makes me think that maybe they will give Carpenter a few opportunities at second base. I'm just hoping that, if those struggles continue, that the leash is very short and very tight on Carpenter.
You got to kind of figure Chris Carlson, if that does happen to be few and far between, you got to figure Carlson's pretty much going to be kind of like Goldie or Arenado, and DeYoung, they probably are going to be playing the majority of the innings, probably be a special, maybe a double switch circumstance or something to where you see Edman playing in center field, you would think.
Yeah, I would think so anyway. Again, we have high hopes for Carlson. He's going to get everyday playing time. Now, if for some reason he struggles, and I don't know that they might move him over to a corner outfield spot and let Edman play center with just having, Williams and Dean on the bench and maybe opening up a Dave where Carpenter can play second. But again, if Carpenter's not hitting, you're just, hurting the team by putting him out there despite what he's making. You're already paying him what you're paying him. You play him too. You're just kind of hurting the team twice as bad.
Yeah. Makes sense. I do want to ask you too, Chris, kind of along the lines that I did Larry at Parsons. What do you think as far as the Woodford over Whitley situation? I know you've kind of followed those guys closely and pay close attention to them. What were your thoughts of taking one over the other, or do you feel like they made the right move, wrong move, or you fine either way?
That's kind of hard to say. With Woodford, I think because he's had a little bit more of a taste of the big leagues, they might have felt a little more comfortable. His numbers weren't horrible this spring, but Whitley looked really sharp. And I don't know if maybe some of that has to do with maybe they prefer Whitley in more of a bullpen role where Woodford could come as a long relief. I don't know what they're thinking on that, but I was a little surprised. It might just be more of a comfortability thing, because I do think Whitley pitched well and Woodford a little under what Whitley did.
Yeah, and Larry, you had mentioned this as well before, but you have to figure some of these guys, they're keeping them stretched out. So just to rehash, I don't think we had this lined out completely as of last week, but John Gant and Ponce de Leon are rounding out the rotation. I think Gant's going to be the fifth starter, the way they had it. Correct me if I'm wrong, you guys. What are your thoughts on the rotation, Larry, as far as Ponce and Gant, and probably having guys like, Woodford, Whitley, and Oviedo, even at the alternate side, are kind of just there for you got to think probably for protection.
Yeah, I think if nothing else in 2020, we learned that, COVID hit, it could wipe out, it could decimate your team. I mean, last year we had the makeup games, we had all the double headers. But if you had Whitley and Parsons and a few of these other guys sitting at the alternate site, and you could bring in 3 or 4 of those guys at one time and take those exposed people that maybe had COVID or whatever the symptoms, and you move them out, that kind of gives you that nice rotation of players in and out. And so I think you still got to keep those guys stretched out. You got to get them to pitch every day. And we know with the month delay in AAA starting, there's really no place for them to go. So even like you said, Liberatore and those guys they're staying in Jupiter to continue to work. So, I think that's kind of a precaution, because, the biggest thing is the old adage is, you can't win championships in April, but you can sure in hell lose one. So I think it's good to be safer, I think, with the COVID, so you don't get that shock factor that you lose. I mean, what if Wainwright gets COVID? Who do you plug in? You're going to just call somebody, but now you got these guys stretched out. They're ready to go. So I think that's the biggest thing too we got to look at.
Yeah, no, it makes total sense. And I think not having some uncertainties in the rotation, I think you talk about how, Mikolas is, not far behind, but the guy still hasn't done any real pitching, and Kim made an appearance and didn't look too well. So they're going to ease him back, but you got to think protection for Ponce, because he didn't look too sharp. Gant has looked really good, or, kind of sort of mediocre. Flaherty was happy with his last performance, but Chris, you got to figure, the Whitleys and the Woodfords and the Oviedos, maybe even to this point, and Alex Reyes are kind of waiting in the wings, or maybe even Reyes might make a spot start here or there. I don't see him being in the back of the bullpen, so it would really limit his 100 plus inning amount. But how do you see the rotation shaping out? And you figure if something does happen, we should be set up to be pretty well protected, right, Chris?
Yeah, I think with Alex Reyes and Heston Cabrera, that's going to be a nice 1-2 punch in the bullpen. But, what's a little confusing is you've got Ponce and Gant at the back end of the rotation. Kim's closer to coming back than Mikolas is. Where do you slot Kim in? I mean, I'm sure some of that's going to be based on Ponce and Gant's performance. But, originally I thought they had Kim projected as maybe a 3 starter. They've already got Carlos in that spot. Is Kim going to come in and be a, back into the rotation guy, or are they going to, just kind of depends on the schedule and who's pitching and, how that works. But I'm a little curious to see where Kim slots in when he comes back.
I would say it'll probably depend on how the schedule looks when he's ready to come back. I think they might mix him in at 3 or 4. I think it's going to depend on who are playing how many off days, because they seem like they want to try to give Wainwright and Flaherty extra time off, if could be, with the way they're kind of working the schedule already. So, maybe that's it, or somebody's going to get rocked, so they might push everybody back a day, and it'll be interesting. And it could be a matchup situation too, who they're playing next to the left-handed heavy lineup. He made that, and then a day off, push him back. It'll be interesting because we do have plenty of options, because you start thinking, right guys, but you got to think of all the guys that did make the team, like Whitley and Oviedo and Reyes, who isn't starting, and then you still have to get, and you do have Parsons, who in a pinch or if a COVID outbreak were to happen, you could add him to the 40-man roster, and put him on the team. We saw a ton of players make their debut last year. So we are pretty flexible when and if Nicholas comes back, and KK Wolf looks like he'll be back. Obviously, he's already started pitching to live hitters, but that's going to push everybody back. And then who's off the roster now? Who's off the team now? Is it Woodford?
It might be. I mean, they do have Seth Elledge on the taxi squad, and they've got guys like a Junior Fernandez at the alternate site with Oviedo and Cazada and a few others. But yeah, I mean, that's something we've talked about all during spring training, is the amount of young arms that they have and just where they're going to slot them in. A lot of it's going to depend, I think, on just what the Cardinals look like starting the season. If somebody gets kind of bumped around early, it wouldn't surprise me to see them shift Gant or Ponce back to the bullpen, or if Carlos gets rocked, maybe a couple starts in and he's not looking sharp, maybe you do something there where you put a Cabrera or Reyes in for a few starts.
Yeah, this makes good sense. One thing I've said all along, people that are asking about the team, because a lot of close friends either listen to this or know we do this and stay in touch with me, and they ask me, they're like, what do you think of the team honestly this year? My one thing that I've said is I think our bullpen has the ability to, or is going to be at the top of Major League Baseball, if not the top. I think we have probably the most dominant and deepest bullpen between Major League Baseball and AAA of any other team. Everyone's Arenado, goalie, those are going to be great, but things have been up and down. It looks like the heart attack graph, but I think our one solid place, and that's going to help out a rotation. Our rotation is obviously not as strong. Everybody wanted Odorizzi and other players, but having a strong bullpen, I think, is going to help solidify that, because I think Schultz is a little different than a Tony La Russa or a Matheny, to where if somebody like Gant or Ponce or even Martinez is in trouble with the bullpen we have, you don't have to hesitate. You can make a move to that bullpen to try to shut down the inning or to make something happen with guys like, we have guys like Webb and Helsley that could be setup guys anywhere else, and these are going to be middle of the rotation guys that you could call on at any time to throw to the minimum of 3 hitters, or even maybe an inning and a half, or what have you, or you could bring them in late in the game. I mean, our bullpen is pretty unstoppable. I mean, and I like Ponce as a 4 or 5 guy, and give Gant a chance, like Larry's been saying all along. Larry, what do you think about, like what Chris was asking about Kim? Where do you slot him in? You think it's pretty much matchup based and time of return?
I think it's going to come down to, because the fact is, again, like we said, that you've got no real minor league teams for him to pitch against. So it's going to be him pitching against, players that were sent down like Thomas and those guys. So when does he get healthy or get stretched out enough? And then where does he fall in the middle of a road trip? Does he, maybe it's just even across the state against the Cubs or somebody like that against Cincinnati, close enough they can just slot him in and say, okay, we're gonna fall right here, and maybe that just kind of pushes Gant back to that long relief position, because that's where we're used to seeing him. So again, I think it's just going to come down to timing, is when he's healthy, and then maybe somebody has a bad outing and they just want to give him that day off, or who knows. It's just I think it's gonna just play out the schedule itself. But the other thing is that I think, with all the pitching we have, we've seen it now. We know where our weakest spot is. It's center field. So how do we know maybe a Ponce or a Gant aren't auditioning for another team? So that's the other thing. I think I always kind of keep that in mind too, because we've got a plethora of teammates that are, the starting pitching or that middle of the relief role that can play that long relief. So maybe some of these guys are getting an opportunity to face live hitters with the intent that they're going to be shipped someplace else for a team that's, struggling, or that high price center fielder that somebody's trying to ship out. We don't know. I mean, right. Then of course, with the, the whole negotiations going next year, there's always that talk of expansion again. And we know how that goes. They're going to start picking apart rosters to steal players. So why not ship those guys out now rather than wait on that to happen?
Yeah, that collective bargaining agreement next year will be interesting. Now, I just want to cover real quick, guys, too, before we move on, the complete roster for people that may have missed it or are only listening to it here. But pitchers, they're going to take 13 to start the season in Cincinnati. We've got Jack Flaherty, Adam Wainwright, Carlos Martinez, Daniel Ponce de Leon, John Gant, Alex Reyes, Jordan Hicks, Andrew Miller, Tyler Webb, Giovanni Gallegos, Genesis Cabrera, one of Chris's buddies, Ryan Helsley, and Jacob Woodford, another one of the Lola's fan club. Catchers are taking 2. Yadier Molina, of course. I'm surprised he made the team. He never played in spring. And then his backup and heir apparent, Andrew Kinsler. Infielders are taking 7. Paul Goldschmidt, Tommy Edman, Nolan Arenado, Paul DeYoung, Matt Carpenter, Edmundo Sosa, and John Nagowski. And then on the outfield, we got 4 guys, but you got to figure Edmund and Nagowski will be shifting out there from time to time. You've got Tyler O'Neill, Dylan Carlson, Justin Williams, and Austin Dean. And also, one other thing before we go on, Dean looked pretty good this year, Chris, didn't he? I mean, he played pretty solid. He's looked pretty good in the outfield. They even put him in right field a little bit because I think they want to test that out. I feel like they want, O'Neill to play left as much as possible, and you're going to see a combination of Williams and Dean in right field to start the season. What are your thoughts on last? Because when we got him last year, everybody, rightly so, was kind of like, oh, what's this guy? We need another one of these guys. But Dean looked pretty sharp. And what are your thoughts on Dean making the team? Do you have a preference, or is he a surprise candidate for you this year?
I think him and Williams both played, well this spring. And from the games that I did catch, it looked like both of them offensively, were more than capable of being at the big league level and getting a spot. And defensively, I don't think either one of them hurts you to have out there either. So, yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of a surprise. I know, like you said, last season, everybody was kind of like, who's this guy? Much kind of like a Matt Caesar type of signing where it was like, we didn't expect to see this kid, at all. But again, if these guys can hit, and I think that's what's going to make or break this Cardinal team. That's what's hurt us in the past is we need guys that can hit. Defensively, I think we're taken care of. If they can keep carrying the bat, then they're going to stay up on the team.
Yeah, I thought he looked pretty sharp, and he's mostly known for his video in Miami where he threw and knocked down the beer can pyramid, which was pretty impressive.
Stand away! Stand away! Get out the way. Oh! Give him the ball! Give him the ball! Have him knock it down!
Right, yeah.
Larry, your thoughts? Do you have much, as far as your thoughts on Williams and Dean? Or it was a good call to put them both on the team. You've got a righty-lefty complement. They both played and they basically earned their way on this team, which we talked about. Those are the key spots that you're kind of watching in spring. And I know you said numerous times that's why you like watching spring training is for guys like that, those competitions. I mean, Carpenter not only getting 2 hits is concerning, and Jack Flaherty looking a little rocky could be concerning, but in reality, you're really watching these guys because spring training, Waino could go out and shut them down. It could look horrible when the season starts. You kind of take it with a grain of salt, but these are the key matchups you kind of watch and that draws your interest, right?
Yeah, with Dean, I kind of said early on, I was kind of disappointed at the very beginning of the spring training when he came out. I thought he came out flat. Then I think it was the Mets game where the wind was blowing, and I think him and Carlson both missed a few balls over their head where the wind kind of got him spun around. Then Dean came on, and even in our group, I was talking about, I said, don't go to sleep on Dean. The kid can play, but Williams, I think if he was a right-handed bat, I think he would be the guy who's been shipped out. But I think the fact that a left-handed bat, I think that makes his difference right there. You had to add that bat to the bench, and I think they're to the point where they got to see what he's going to have anyway. Even if he does have another year, I still think you got to know what he does because. He was really a high prospect at one time, and he's got the talent. I mean, healthy, that's a 5-tool player. And so maybe you catch lightning in a bottle with him. Thomas shocked me being sent out. I'm not going to lie. He left us without a true center fielder when Bader went down. So Carlson moving to center field, that's not his ideal spot. I think he's a corner outfielder. And the fact that he's going to be around as long as he is, I think it's time to settle him into a spot and leave him alone. Let him have the right field. Say, hey, this is your spot from here on out. But I think you're forced into that by the Bader exit. So again, the Thomas thing, I wouldn't be surprised if he's not back sooner than later. So
yeah, which this is kind of interesting too. You know, I hate to say we've mentioned this before, but we kind of have, and we don't want to beat a dead horse, but this is one year where we had a lot of positions that weren't solidified, but we got all these guys that can play these positions because technically, you know, Chris, you've mentioned it before too. O'Neal can play center field. Williams can play center field. You know, it looks like Dean can play left or right. Tommy Edman can play any of those outfield positions. When Matt Carpenter came up, he could play a left and right field, and he did, even though that was a long time ago now. But we've got all these guys that can play all these different positions, but we don't really know, you know, or we didn't know till really the end who was going to play where. It looks like your most common switches are going to be at left, right, with maybe second if Edman takes a corner spot and Carpenter played in the game against a righty. And I feel like Carp is going to get some opportunities at the beginning before they write him off. I think he knows his role now. Maybe this will relax Carp a little bit. He knows he's a bench guy. He doesn't have a lot of burden on his shoulders at all. He's got pressure on him to perform because of his contract and where he's been with the team for so long. But the guy's done a lot over his career. And I know we'd write it off, but it's been a couple of years where he's been down and his numbers have, you know, his trajectory path is way down. He's fallen down, you know, Everest, you know, with the steep decline he's had. But you got to figure he's going to get ample opportunities. He's going to get pinch hit positions. And really, if you think about it, how many of these teams out there have guys like him on their team in a bench role? Usually you see the guys like the Yankees picking them up. Like they have Jay Bruce. Jay Bruce hasn't done much the last couple of years, you know. Todd Frazier's still out there. Some of these guys haven't. But if you get in a tight situation, it's just a lot of, you know, baseball we say is mentally, right? Say we're in a bases loaded situation and you've got, you know, Justin Williams or the pitchers coming up. If it's late in the game, and just even if Carpenter's not, the opposing team has to say, okay, this guy, if I make a mistake, can do damage. He can hit this out of the ballpark because one thing that hasn't really fallen off until recently has been his power. So he's got some potential, but it's not, you're not saying, okay, here comes Austin Dean, or here comes, you know, Elaine Thomas or Justin Williams to pinch hit. Oh, great. Here comes Matt Carpenter. That was an MVP candidate a few years ago. So I think it does make our team better. So people thinking him not being on the team, I think is a little uncalled for this early. You have to give him a fair chance, but I feel like having him on the team as a bench player makes us better, and he's better than a lot of alternatives. Not saying he's better than a Nagowski because Nagowski made the team. If Nagowski didn't make the team, I think a lot of people would be up in arms. But even just having Carp or the potential for what he could do, just from time to time, has to kind of pique the interest level a little bit. I mean, am I way off, Chris, or do you kind of feel the same as me?
No, I mean, you hear a lot of the people in the group that they're seeing spring training numbers. And while that in itself isn't concerning, the fact that this has been over 2 years of him struggling, that is concerning. And I've always said, you know, you can get on a player for their performance or lack thereof. You know, it's a what have you done for me lately type of thing. But I think, you know, looking across baseball, like the Rangers just got ties with Odor, who they owed a buttload of money to. But they were able to do that, and everybody was clamoring, why don't the Cardinals just go ahead and cut ties with Carpenter? My thinking on that is, you know, we just sent Fowler and paying most of his contract. Are we really going
We did basically cut a player already, is what you're saying, yeah.
Right. So, I mean, we do that again, then you're combining both salaries that we're paying to play somewhere else. Because, you know, Carpenter's probably going to get picked up somewhere by some team. If
somebody picking up on a minor league deal for sure, just on the what if, just like what I was just talking about, the what if, what he might do. Yeah.
Right. And then the buyout, you know, to buy him out of the contract too. So, I mean, it's like you said, you can have him come in knowing that that's his role, you know, coming off the bench. And quite frankly, the only time that he does to seem to either get on base or get a hit is in situations where like the bases are loaded. You know, he has a pretty good batting average with the bases loaded, but you know, maybe he can thrive in this role. Hopefully he can, but you know, unfortunately it just didn't work out to where, you know, he's had a good enough spring to really get fans excited about another season. Right.
Which, you know, Cardinal Nation, I think it's the team's fault. Nation, we're spoiled. You know, they've given us a winning team more times than not, and we've been spoiled by it. And I think a lot of our fans, us included, And I know we do appreciate it, but we kind of take for granted, like, how lucky we are and how good of a team we normally have. And the Cardinals are competitive every year, even though people say, oh, well, now we got Arenado. Not good enough. We need a pitcher. They're doing things to keep us competitive and keep us in the mix. And the years that we did win, nobody thought we were going to. So, and even in 2013, whenever we went back to the playoffs against Boston, everyone's, without Albert, we're not ever going to make the playoffs. We're not going to make it. And then we didn't have Berkman either, because he was already gone. We had Beltran, and we had guys like Matt Carpenter that took us there. Larry, going back to you, and this is probably the last time I'll bring up Carpenter unless you guys want to keep talking about him, but you got to think, even just having him, like, Chris said, having him on the team gives you a different look, because if you've got a Matt Carpenter and you've got John Nagowski and it's late in the game and you need runs, you've got two decent options. And Carpenter, even though his batting average has been low the last couple of years, he still has potential to do damage. And you have Nagowski, who has an amazing ability to get on base and hit throughout his entire minor league career. So whenever you've got options like that to come off the bench from the right or left side of the plate now, right, we've got two pretty good pinch hitters when it comes to facing some of these other teams.
The one thing that I just looked up was the one thing that does fare well for Matt is his career numbers against the Reds are .282 batting average. So maybe that falls into play in April, because that's just happens to be who we're opening up against. The other thing is, just like you said, if you're in Chicago and you're a Cubs player and you remember just 2 years ago what the damage that man did just in one series, versus, say Dean or Williams coming in and getting that pinch hit, like you said, Matt Carpenter strolls to the plate at Wrigley and you're going, oh God, here we go again. So that's the difference he brings. But not only that, but you can't discount that he's been there, the World Series, he's done that. And that's a leadership role as well as on the bench. A player like that struggles. He helps the younger guys, because, the thing they always talk about is Matt's the first one to the park. He's the last one to go home. So whether he's in a struggles or not, we know it's not for lack of trying. Mm-hmm. So maybe it is his hand-eye coordination. I don't know. Maybe it's bat speed. I don't know. But the last I heard was his bat speed still what it was 2-3 years ago. I think it's pitch selection. I think, the strikeouts, he's looking for the walk. I think he's got to get out of that. I think the launch angle, he's changed his swing. If you go back prior to him batting third in the lineup, he had that nice level swing. He hit the ball opposite way. Then you take into when they moved into third and started hitting the home runs. He's got that uppercut swing with the exit velocity. He's looking for that launch angle. And I think that's the worst thing that ever happened to Matt Carpenter.
Well, I was thinking back to myself, and I was actually checking like some old highlights, because we got to talking about his swing. And one thing I did notice, people were talking about his back. He's always done that back stretch, and I never noticed that, where he leans back. I don't know if he's getting ready, but he's always done that. What I did notice, Lawless, don't get pissed off, because I know how you are, and you're always the first one to overreact and get super aggressive with everybody. Me and Larry are tired of it.
Stay calm, Chris. Calm.
Do my best.
He didn't have the beard. He didn't have the facial hair when he was hitting all those doubles. The last few years, he's had that beard. I think he shaves that damn thing off. Boom. Problem.
It weighs him down. Mm-hmm. And the sweat gets in his eyes and he glitters. That's what it is.
Between shaving the beard and hiring
Salsa.
What's his name? Cletus? What's his name?
Cletus, yeah.
Hiring him as a personal hitting instructor / motivational coach and shaving the beard. Boom.
You don't think any other had to do with the salsa, though?
You suck, Carpenter. You suck. This is me being positive.
And we give Carpenter a hard time, too, the three of us, because it is a lot of money. And we buy memorabilia like you see on our walls and in our studios. And we subscribe to baseball packages. So if you contribute financially, I feel like you can in reason. But like Chris has always said, and like you just said now, Larry, it's not like he's intentionally saying, I hope I go out there and I really suck. I'm doing bad, but I'm not really going to try now. He's tried it. Nobody obviously wants to play as good as he does. He's a victim of time, and he's never had fast bat speed. And he used to walk a lot more. And now he's expecting those calls, and his batting average is dipped. And I think those borderline calls he's obviously not getting anymore. And when he was hot, he was getting them. So his approach to the plate definitely needs to change. Like Chris said, he even thought about batting gloves at one point in time. Why hasn't he tried them? I don't know if that'll fix it, but it's little mental ticks, like let me do this. Oh, this worked. Or even shaving the beard. As dumb as it sounds, a lot of these players are superstitious. But I feel like if he goes out and has a couple of performances now that he knows he's not starting and actually relaxes a little bit and does well, I would like to see the guy get a decent little confidence boost and be a contributor on the team this year. I don't want to see him get cut and play for somebody else. I would like to see him do well. I know you guys would too. And that's the situation we're in with Matt Carpenter. Unfortunately, it hasn't worked out. But again, spring training, forget about it. It's over. Those numbers don't mean anything. Those numbers are not going to be on the back of a baseball card. His last 2 seasons are. But let's see what he does this year. The season starts Thursday. It's a clean slate. And hopefully that's the way he's approaching it. It's a clean slate. Whatever just happened in spring, forget about it. I made the team. This is my role. And he's accepted the role. He wants to be a bench leader, he said, and work with the young guys. And that's the kind of guy you want, someone that's positive and willing to accept the role. Not some old guy that was a star, because Carp was a star. People don't remember, but back when he was a doubles machine and killing home runs and everybody wanted salsa, he was a star, and he has been on this team for a long time. Other than, Waino and Yachty, he's been there the longest. So he's been here, he's been a star, and he's accepted his new position, and he wants to do well in it. He's not pissed off. He doesn't want to get traded. He's not, trying to ruffle feathers.
The Cardinal fans, too, the crazy thing about it is I'm sure other fan bases are the same in this, that you have the diehard fans, you've got the casual fans, you've got some blurred lines with the way that they fan. Like we have Adam Wainwright, we've got Molina, and every day in the group you'll see some of them saying Molina's done. Let's move on from him. Yet we're watching games where the guy's gunning people out. He's not hurting you with the bat. Somebody like Wainwright that everybody was ready to give up on, carried the team last season. Not going to say that these guys are going to continue to do that, but they have a legacy of being Cardinal legends, and sometimes fans they can't differentiate the past from what they're presently doing. Same case with Matt Carpenter. Some people were saying, hey, he's a future Red Jacket guy. Other people are like, there's no way. There's
Those
no
people are probably thinking of the last 2 years.
Right. There's no middle ground, and some people are quick to just, hey, what have you done for me yesterday? Not even a month ago. But it's hard to see that. I know, and it's not just young fans. I'm seeing some of these fans, they're elderly basically, and they're saying the same thing as the teenage fans. It's, hey, get rid of them. Some people I just think have that mentality of, if you're not performing, go. And it's not my money, so it doesn't matter if the team cuts you and we owe you. It's not anything out of their pocketbook. So it's just kind of hard to see that. I know Cardinal fans are supposed to be the best in baseball, and maybe other fan bases have those type of fans too. But it's just crazy that we've got potentially, if you look at Arenado and Goldschmidt, you've got like 5 guys that could be future Red Jacket guys on this team. And, instead of taking that in and appreciating that, and the fact that the Cardinals are always in, they're competitive, they're just bagging out of the gate, that they're never pleased. There's always something to complain about. But that's, at least they're passionate fans.
Thing that I see now is the social media stuff. I mean, I'm probably the biggest Ozzie Smith fan there is going. Ozzie was promised if he outperformed Royce Clayton, he would be the starting shortstop. Tony La Russa's first year in, he benches the legend. I'm sorry, the other legend, Ozzie Smith. Other than me. Yeah. Right. And so I remember those days, but I also just remember going to a game with Chris, sitting there and listening to one of our members of our group telling us how Wainwright's contract was probably one of the worst contracts they ever gave, how he was washed up, he was done. That same guy now is singing praise for Wainwright, saying, oh, yeah, I can't believe how good he's doing. And like Chris has said, I think we've become this disposable society where it's the now. I got to be satisfied now. You can't. These young players have to develop into those stars. They don't happen overnight. Ozzie Smith and Yachty, I mean, I see their parallel of their careers. They both didn't hit, but they all had that glove, and that, they played above and beyond everybody else with that glove, and that made them the excellent player they were. And Matt Carpenter, whether people like it or not, he's one of the all-time great leadoff hitters, and people don't know those statistics. because if they want that instant gratification that, oh yeah, this guy's, I'm sorry, like Cletus, the 0 for 33 or 1 for 33. Sure, anybody can grab that. But how do you know what Matt Carpenter's doing in the batting cages 3 hours after that game's over? Maybe he's in there swinging till his hands are bleeding. He's got blisters all over his hands, and maybe that's part of the problem. We don't know. But to just write these guys off, I think it's just wrong. And I realize that you're not sympathetic about Jared, as boohoo and all that. But I just think that even if he's on the bench now, think about it. What was our roster? 25 a couple years ago. Now we're at 26. He's taking a spot that didn't even exist 2 years ago.
Right. It's just different because it's hard to put. If you go back and look, like you guys were just talking about too with Waino, if you go back and look at the history of his contract and the way he's pitched and performed, we've actually had pretty good deals on him all along, especially the last few years. He didn't pay, he paid $1 million. What was it, 2 years ago? He signed $1 million contract. He could have easily went somewhere else and got $3 or $4 million to be a fifth as a rotation guy. Now look at him. And he's also probably the main contributing factor that the Yadier Molina thing zipped up and finished real quick. I mean, who was the first person he called? And then everyone said, oh, Yadi's going to sign now when this is over. It kind of forced Yadi's hand. And number two, one thing, Jack Flaherty has potential to be like one of the greatest pitchers in Cardinal history for his time being here. I'm not a huge fan of his personally. There's a couple things I do like. His tradition. He does take tradition to heart, as we saw with his cleats that he's going to unveil to have Lou Brock and Bob Gibson. And number two, he always listened to those guys. He always soaked up he's smart. He always soaked up all the knowledge they gave. Number three, he does listen to Waino. He looks up to Waino. They always have their little Twitter and stuff going back and forth. So there's a lot of things I do like about Jack that he does well that you don't see out of a lot of young guys. But Wainwright kind of brings that to the table. And he's always talking with guys. He's always, having a good time, having fun. And going back to, people talking about how Yadi and Waino were washed up. I mean, look at Yadi. You can't just look at numbers. We've said this before. Ability to handle pitching staff. I think he makes Carlos Martinez at least half an ERA point better than any other typical catcher. And we saw, we all did a fantasy baseball draft last night. How many catchers are there out there that are good? Not many. You've got like maybe 10 catchers that are decent, and that's probably a stretch with a couple of them. And then there's not much. I still think Yadi is a top 5 catcher in all of baseball, just defensively. And people are saying, oh, he's a lot slow. Yadi hadn't looked too slow defensively to me this spring. He's played a lot of innings. Robles is one of the fastest guys ever on the Nationals. He hadn't picked off at first base. Everyone thought he was picked off, but Nagowski kind of fell asleep there and wasn't paying attention. So Robles made it back in, and then he tried to steal the bag and got thrown out anyways. And he's one of the best base stealers in baseball. And I know everyone saw the whole series situation to where Molina was like, yeah, let's go. You get somebody like Molina fired up, come playoff time. You got Waino, and you got Yadi, and you got a guy like Carp. You've got some good experience and some good balance. We've got a lot of good young guys. We've got some savvy veterans that know what they're doing. I think we are poised to make a decent run. Nobody in the Central. It's going to be tougher than people think. People think the Central is going to be a walk-off. The East is going to be real tough, which we'll find out with our second series against Miami. And the National League West is going to be cream of the crop and duds. You got your Padres and the Dodgers, and the other guys are going to be nothing. So it's going to be an interesting season for sure. And then I'll go ahead.
I was going to say another thing about Molina that, people were talking about his percentage of thrown out base stealers, and that's kind of taken a hit. But as you pointed out, we've talked about in the past too, how many guys aren't running because Molina's back there? Those are numbers that you can't, there's not a stat on, you don't know.
Not a stat for guys that thought about stealing but didn't.
Right. So just his presence, behind the plate is got a value to it. Now you can't put a dollar amount necessarily on that, but there is a presence back there, whether you're calling the game, controlling the pitching staff, doing the things like pick off, those are just things that, the numbers don't show his true value. And, for our fans to be so eager to move on and criticize some guys like that, it's kind of hard to take in.
I own up to it. I was one of those guys. Hey, the guy's 39 years old. It's time to move forward. Let the Cannonsers of the world get their shot. And I was more about the money. It was more about what's that contract he's wanting. If he's wanting a 1 year, just all incentives, I was fine with that. I have a problem with that. He's a team leader. My problem was when he was holding the fan or the team hostage by coming out to the fans. That's what didn't appeal to me. That's your agent is there to barter for you. You don't need to get on Twitter or whatever, the Instagrams or whatever, and put that out there. And I think that was bad business. Now, again, I appreciate everything Yachty's done. I mean, the guy gave up a testicle for the team. I mean, what else can you ask for a guy, And I mean, again, you got a general behind the plate. And I think this guy will be retired, and about 10 minutes later, he'll get a phone call and he'll be a manager somewhere, or he'll be a pitching coach. I disagree with the Carlos Martinez. I've said that for a long time. I think Carlos needs a different catcher. I think Yachty and him I don't think it's in sync, and I think he pitches better to a different catcher. That's the one guy I wish they would let him pitch to somebody else. But you see the Flaherty thing? He's coddled Flaherty. He's brought Flaherty where he is. I mean, that's what it is. And we see that between Wainwright and Yachty. It's magical now. It's to that point where it's magical. It's legends, even beyond me, legends.
Yeah, even Bueno, that's from Georgia and grew up a Braves fan. He's even said himself, him wearing another major league jersey just wouldn't look right, not even to him. So, and the Braves are one of the teams that were interested in signing him in the offseason. So. Then to finish out the roster, we've also got, obviously, Dakota Hudson, Harrison Bader, who am I missing? Miles Mikolas, and Ken KK. They're all on the injured list. So Dakota Hudson, obviously, Tommy John surgery, he's going to be out for the year. Has started throwing and stuff, light toss, which is good news, but he's probably going to miss the whole entire season. If he even had a shot, it'd be very late in the year. But with all the pitchers we have, we don't need him, and we're going to need him in the next several years. They sent 21 players, and it looks like most of these players that are going to be at this alternate training site across the river are going to end up in AAA once the minor league season begins. But some notables are on this list. Libator, Thompson, Zach Thompson, and Oviedo are on that list for sure. So we'll just go through the whole list. Pitchers, there's 13 guys at the alternate training site. It's Jesus Cruz, who they fell in love with recently. They've been running that guy out there every chance they get. Junior Fernandez, Connor Jones, Evan Krasinski, Libator, like we already said, Oviedo, Tommy Parsons, Larry Cox is number one, which is good. Looks like he's going to be going straight to AAA, which is impressive for a non-roster invite. Let's see, where did I leave off? Quezada that we got in the trade from Philadelphia, right, Chris? Philly?
Yep.
Sorry if I'm off a little bit. Yes. Roel Ramirez, who we saw pitch in that great game against the White Sox last year. Angel Rondon, Zach Thompson, who we already mentioned, another lefty prospect, looks good. Austin Warner and Garrett Williams. Two catchers, Tyler Heineman, who you guys saw late spring, Dennis Ortega. Infielders, only three are going to the alternate site. Evan Mendoza, Max Moroff, who looked pretty good in spring. I know Larry was paying close attention to him also. And then Kramer Robertson. Outfielders, Connor Cape, Scott Hurst, and Chris's favorite, Lars Nootbaar. And then I guess the most interesting fact is not so much players at the alternate site. Anyone surprising or stand out from you, Chris? You surprised that Gorman's not at the alternate site? For him or Herrera?
I was going to say, with those guys, not too surprised just because they're going to baby those guys. They're not going to rush them, and there's really not a need to. They weren't, in spring training, everybody's trying to get better and make the team. But I think those guys, their numbers in spring weren't that strong, and they're really a good year away from making the club. So it doesn't really surprise me much. But, you mentioned Max Moroff, not to be confused with his twin brother, Jax Moroff.
They Jack me off? Who?
Yeah. Max's brother, Jax.
Jack me off.
Jax Moroff.
Oh, he does.
Yes.
Interesting. Larry, don't Google that, Larry. Tell you on your
I was trying to find out who that was. He must be Chris's relation.
third cousin.
I do like the name Lars Nootbaar, though. That has got to be my most favorite. I know I've said it before, but in all the Cardinal organization, Lars Nootbaar, that's just great.
It's a fantastic name.
Fantastic.
Is that part of the Tallahassee Nootbaars from Tallahassee?
I'm not sure, but how would you like to be the missus there? Hey, I fell in love with a guy named Lars Nootbaar. I'm going to take your last name. Lucky lady.
Nootbaar. Could be Lawless. Could be Cox. Can you imagine going around, hey, Miss Cox? Miss Cox.
Mrs. Ask her. She's in the other room. I'll bring her in. She'll tell you.
Well, I know Larry Cox. I don't call him Mr. Cox. It's usually just by his other name, which is very similar. Dickhead. But we love you.
I'm feeling
Larry, any surprises there for you for the guys that didn't make it out? Herrera and Gorman, which pretty much means I think Gorman makes sense. Those guys are probably going to be in Double-A, which you and I talked about Herrera being in Double-A. Makes more sense. They're going to get more time to work with Jose Oquendo. So, working on their new positions and, honing in their skills a little bit. Not going to see any game action. So it makes sense for them to get the extra work in, don't you think?
Yeah, it depends on what if Gorman is now really going to make a push to play second base. He's going to have to learn the footwork and throwing from the other side of second base. So I think that's a good place for him. That one did kind of surprise me a little bit because I thought he had a good spring for where he is and as young as he is. I think he showed poise and he showed that he belongs. So I think he really had a pretty good spring. But like you said, you're not going to get reps sitting and not in the alternate camp because all they're doing is playing pickup baseball basically. So the best place for them is a place where they're getting instruction. They're going to face live hitting or live pitching and stuff right away. So I think that's the best thing for them.
MLB has their own COVID protocols, but if at least 85% of the roster gets vaccination, then they're going to loosen up on their protocols, which the Cardinals did when they arrived at Cincinnati today, had the option to get the vaccination from Johnson & Johnson. And a lot of players, apparently, the rumor was, weren't interested in getting the vaccination, but apparently they did get it tonight. They had a good turnout, but Mozeliak refused to comment on the exact percentage and number of players that got the vaccination, which leads me to believe that they did not hit 85%. Chris, what are your thoughts on the vaccine? I made a post on the group, earlier this year. If the vaccination becomes available, do you think players should get it? My main concern was because of this. I didn't think should they have priority over, regular people, but I think they should have a different avenue to get it because sports, times like this, everyone needs their sports outlet. The last thing we want to see is doubleheaders that are 7 innings and games getting canceled and yada, yada. We want to have some system of normalcy, and hopefully they hit the 85%, but if not, hopefully it's just kind of an afterthought, not a big deal anymore.
Yeah, I'm a little torn on, the idea of the vaccination in itself. I mean, it is a good idea. But again, leaving it up to the players to decide whether or not they want it, I think is the right thing to do, to force that on them. I know some people say, hey, they're making millions of dollars. You can kind of control these players like puppets. I don't really like the idea of forcing that. So if players chose to do it, more power to them. And for those that didn't, I don't think they need to be thrown under the bus and names brought out just so, a certain part of the fan base can criticize those players for not.
Well, I think also we forget that a lot of these players aren't all American players either. You got Latin American, I guess Matt American, but you got Latin American players. You've got players from other countries coming in. Just maybe their thought and their process is different than ours. So to single out players that don't take the shot or single out players because there are people, that aren't going to take the vaccination. They may point fingers, say, why did that guy take it? That's just another knock on that player for taking the shot. So I think it is, again, like you said, it's across the board. It's safety, plus the fact that they travel.
Yeah. I think it's good. I just don't want to see games get canceled. So I feel like if players want to get it, great. If not, I don't judge or care one way or the other. So, but I think it's nice to have the option.
Yeah, I'm waiting for one of the guys that did get the vaccination to turn up positive for steroids and blame it on the COVID shot.
Oh shit. Flawless. I didn't even think of that. That's a hell of a
Sneaky.
that could be a big podcast thing.
There you go.
Who knows that?
Hey, have we ever thought about doing a podcast? We should do a podcast.
No, we don't have the time. We're busy. We don't have time. We're not even going to post this one. This is all horseshit.
You've been posting these? Are we supposed to watch these?
No, you're not.
Okay.
Damn it. No, but it does make you wonder. That's a good point. What if someone does blame? Or I was actually thinking you were taking this a different route. And I thought you were saying if they get vaccinated, what if we have a positive test?
And that could happen.
Baseball again. But I could see somebody definitely saying that, use it as an excuse, whether it's legit or not, or what if it does cause some kind of false positive on a different test? Holy cow. It's a whole can of worms. We're going to have to talk about that next week.
Right.
On the new podcast, Conversations with Cox. Now we will talk about, because we have the possibility of COVID, since we're on the subject of COVID, and we're going to be talking about it until 2023, is the taxi squad, which we had talked about. And taxi squad
also
are the
referred
players
to as the Uber squad.
That is true. It is also, it could be the Uber squad for sure. I think we'll just call it that. On the Uber squad, that players that basically will travel with the team, warm up practice, go through all the same protocols. They're just there in case positive tests do occur. They can activate, they can make a roster move quickly, and they're not shorthanded, depending on the town of travel time, basically. So on that squad, we have Seth Elledge, you guys, Cody Whitley, catcher Ali Sanchez, who we did get from the Mets, who's on our top 30 prospect list. Infielder Jose Rondon, which a lot of people were upset he didn't make the squad. And then the other that I've heard the most about is Elaine Thomas. He is also on the taxi squad, which is kind of a given. And you have to think, when you look at the outfielders at the alternate site, not a lot of guys. I mean, we know who Connor Cape, Scott Hertel, or Newbar are, but there's not much in terms of prospects. They're all either on the team currently, injured, or going to be on the taxi squad. Chris, what are your thoughts? That's a pretty and I'm actually surprised Elledge is on the taxi squad, not someone like Oviedo. That move, or maybe even Zach Thompson, was a little surprising to me. What are your thoughts on the taxi squad, Chris?
That would be my exact thoughts right there. Is somebody like an Oviedo come up, and even though his numbers didn't blow you away last season, I think he brings a presence on the mound that's a little bit different than Seth Elledge. Elledge saw a little bit of time last season too. When you've got guys like Liberatore and Thompson, that again, I thought maybe they might not rush either one of them. Both of them look like they were capable this spring. I know Liberatore kind of had some outings where he gave up some runs, but his pitches look filthy, and same with Thompson. I think those guys, again, about a year away, but Junior Fernandez kind of took a bump back, where he was somebody I thought would make an impact this season. Again, just Seth Elledge making the taxi squad is really my only kind of surprise, because I think they're going to utilize Whitley a lot, and Lane Thomas will come up if need be on a struggling outfielder.
Yeah, and you also, I would have maybe looked at Chris probably taking Fernandez or even Quezada over Elledge, just based off last year's performance in the spring. I would still like to see Quezada make an appearance myself. Just his whole frame and body work just kind of impressed me. I'd like to see what he's capable of.
Yeah, definitely a monster on the mound. Him and Oviedo, both the Johans, basically, they are big men on the mound. So I'd like to see a combination of those two at some point.
I just caught on that you said the Johans. Don't mess with the Johans.
Don't mess with the Johans.
Don't mess with the Johans. Fool. I pity the fool. Don't mess with the Johans. And Larry, on the taxi squad, one of those 5 players has to be a catcher, which is where Sanchez comes into play. What are your thoughts on Rondon? I know you're a big fan of his.
Oh, the only infielder is Rondon, and you got to think too that if Sosa struggles, there might be a swap there at some point too, even though Sosa's out of options.
Yeah, Larry, your thoughts on the taxi squad? I mean, Rondon, you're high on. He's on there. Thomas, obviously, he's going to be a given to be on there, to be warming up, practicing with the team, ready to go if need be. Elledge, Whitley, but Rondon you're pretty high on, and I was actually one of the people that was surprised. I actually thought if anyone was going to be DFA'd after spring training, it was going to be Sosa, but they're taking him north, and he's going to make the team.
I think just the longevity of Sosa being with the team as long as he has, and they've got a long-term investment in him. So we know a couple years ago he had a great spring. He's shown the abilities to hit. So I think it's, again, how much emphasis do we put on the spring training numbers versus what we know his body of work is in the past. So do you give him that chance and the opportunity to come up and play against, again, the major league level talent of pitchers versus the kids right out of high school, the college kids coming in to play against him. So that's the differences, I think. Rondon, on the other hand, I was really shocked, honestly, that they didn't find that spot. But I think if anybody has a true complaint about Carpenter being on the team, I think it's Rondon, because I think that's the one spot he did take. But because I think Rondon, I was just shocked as anybody. He had such great spring. I didn't figure for much. I figured just him and Moroff, either one. I figured they were just bodies coming in to help fill rosters out. But they both had impressive springs, and I think Rondon, I think he's hit a lot of people's radar.
Yeah. To me, you would think it would make more sense if Rondon was going to be at the alternate sites or, going to AAA or even staying back, getting actual playing in like simulated games and stuff. But being on the taxi squad, they're going to warm up with the team, but it's not like, those guys aren't going to be getting like a lot of competitive at bats of batting practice. So they're kind of there if you need them, but they're not, usually the objective for not taking a good player, though, is they always say, well, we want them to get at bats and get reps. It's not going to do good for them to be sitting around here, which is kind of the opposite of what they're doing with Rondon, which kind of surprised me. And same thing with Elaine Thomas. I would rather personally see someone with the 40-man, like a new bar on the taxi squad for a game or two instead of, Thomas.
But again, I think it's also that preparation of, coming into a big league game. They get the workouts, they travel schedule, they understand how it works. So I think it's a little bit better for guys like that. Like Rondon, he's been around a little bit longer. He's actually played the major leagues. So I think a guy like that, you have no investment in him other than what his salary is. So I think I can understand that. But what if you get that rain out and you get a doubleheader? He's playing the next game. So, and you can see what happens. And then, like I said, he brings value that maybe there is a team out there looking for that middle infielder that we can trade for. So you just don't know. I mean, I hate to try to get into Mo's head and try to project out because, like we said earlier, you start looking down the road at all the pitchers and the outfielders we got. Somebody has to start going. We can't keep stockpiling these guys. And I realize, we're probably going to lose Waino next year, and we've got Kim that's not contracted for next year. Those guys could leave, but you got 7 or 8 guys to take those 2 openings. And so I think that exposing these guys that you want to that major league level talent, the workout, the regimes, how that all works, the regiments is what I meant to say, that gives them better understanding of what their preparation should be. Whereas at AAA, you get on the bus, you drive here, drive there. And I think that's a little bit different as well. So
I agree with you. Great points.
Agree with me? Holy crap.
Yeah, I always do. You're never wrong.
Well, I've been wrong once, but she's an ex-wife, so we won't talk about it.
Yeah, the hell with her.
That's what 2 ex-wives, I think it was them. Just saying.
So then 2 people were wrong, not just one. 2. Well, don't strike out, Larry. Try to keep the one you got.
Home run.
Another gentleman, Chris, opening the season and on Thursday. It's an early game. Going to Cincinnati, Great American Ballpark. We open the season there a lot, it seems like. Opening day against the Reds. They've actually got some serious injuries to their pitching staff. They're going to be without Sonny Gray and a lot of guys. This is looks like it should be a good season series win to open up 2021. Your thoughts on going into Cincinnati?
I sure hope so. I know a team like Cincinnati, and I'll even go ahead and say the Cubs too, they're going to be competitive. I mean, they're not really favored to be, 1A or 1B where us and Milwaukee are slated, but they're going to beat up on the division. And I think that's been the biggest knock on our division has been not that it's weak with the exception of Pittsburgh this year. it's just that teams do beat each other up in this division. Cincinnati, they've got the bats that they could be lethal in a series. That they all get hot. That could really put a hurt on the Cardinals. I think it's important to come out of the gate early, firing on all cylinders, and hopefully the Cardinals offense can carry them through and get a series win.
Yeah, it'd be nice to leave Cincinnati with the first winning road series of the year. Larry, going back into the rotation, they've got Luis Castillo, who's by far their best pitcher, going against Flaherty, and then then they have the off day just in case there's rain. They always do that when the season opens, and then they go and play on Saturday, and that's going to be Wainwright against Tyler Mahle. Other than that, the Reds don't have 3, 4, and 5 solidified. They've got a lot of pitching injuries. Lorenzen is hurt. Sonny Gray is hurt. They don't know who's going to be pitching. So hopefully this is an opportunity for our bats to come out and hot and get a little momentum to start the season and carry that into Miami.
Yeah, I think that they really thought they could get Bauer to re-sign, and I think that really shocked them. They didn't get the opportunity to re-sign him. So I think it kind of put them all in flux. Then they made some roster moves in the offseason, thought they could bring in some pitching. I don't think it worked out well for them. And like you said, I mean, you're looking at what game 1, 2, 3, game 3 of the season's to be determined for a starter. I mean, that's I'm sorry, that is just pretty sad for a Major League team. But the injury bug hits. We've been there. We know how it is. We scramble. But it is the next man up. And to go into Cincinnati, walk out of there with a win, winning series, that's the whole point of every series, that you just got to win the series. You don't have to sweep everybody, but you just have to win the series. Their park scares the hell out of me. I don't know about you guys. I've seen too many late inning leads just disappear in that ballpark. I think it's like a little league field. I was there. I've seen the ball just zips out of that place like it's nothing. And it just, I think that's why they continue to load up on those great big hitters, because they got to play to their field. But those same guys kill them when they go to a place like St. Louis, that it doesn't jump off their bat like it does there. So the pitching does hurt them. Plus, I mean, they scrambled to try to find a good shortstop this year too. That's the other thing they're hurting. So their lineup is not, I mean, it's not complete, I shouldn't say, but they have some monster bats. It's going to be a tough series, I think, but it's a good opening series for what we have coming in. I always like the guys like Arenado. Their first game is a true Cardinal. I like seeing it on the road versus a home. It takes that little bit of pressure off, because we know what's going to happen. I mean, it's not going to be 43,000, but I still, at home opener, all the red and everything, then see Arenado come into that, and then his first at bat, we know it's the standing O. That's got to be a ton of pressure. So that's why I kind of like to see on the road, and even like Ponce getting that start, on the road. I guess he won't. It'll be your third starter is going to be
Carlos.
Yeah,
Carlos Martinez, and then be Ponce.
Yeah, so it'll be Ponce. Yeah. So and that's the good thing is it's get those two guys more on the road pitching instead of at home. I think there's more pressure at home.
Yeah, and there will be a little shuffle of the rotation before they go back home to play Milwaukee to make Wainwright the opening day starter in St. Louis. So we've got the Cincinnati games coming up. They're all early games for everyone. So if you're not feeling well, start selling it up Wednesday so you can call out on Thursday.
I hope my boss will let me take it off. Oh, wait a minute.
Your wife?
Me.
Yeah, your wife.
She works. She doesn't know if I'm home or not. I don't tell her.
Oh, you just pull out of the driveway and go down the street and wait.
No, she's at work. So I come home, there's nobody here.
Oh. Okay, Larry. Okay.
He's got to figure it out.
And now
that's how you know he's
I have the
dedicated.
MLB app. I can watch it anywhere.
It's true. You can't watch it anywhere. And a lot of people that don't know this, you can subscribe to MLB app. It's been like that for a couple of years to where you can actually just select your team. Then you don't have the blackout problem. You can select the Cardinals only package, not every single game. So those of you that are having trouble with Fox/Bally's, what have you, not getting the game, you can sign up for MLB TV and do Cardinals only, and then you don't have to worry about the blackouts.
You know what else they can subscribe to? Our YouTube channel. and they can get all the highlights for the week that was in Cardinal baseball for free 99.
Free 99. Holy, that was a great segue, Chris.
It's free.
You know what else they can subscribe to?
Yeah.
Our YouTube channel.
Damn straight.
So, and then we go into Miami. Just a brief recap. We'll talk more about this obviously next week, so it'll be right in the middle of podcast time. But then we go to Miami to play the former Cardinals.
Yeah.
Alcantara and all these other guys. Chris, anything you want to mention in closing?
Again, we keep thanking everybody that's tuned in and subscribed to the podcast, and the page and group keeps growing, and that's all great too. Just many thanks to everybody that supports us. Whether it's that subscription or helping us get the word out. I kind of want to throw one last curveball since this is the last episode before the season starts. Let's make some predictions here, so we are on record of saying what we expect the Cardinals to do in 2021. I'll let you guys go first, but you can go as far as all through the playoffs, making the playoffs, win the division, however you see fit. But what are your expectations of where you see the Cardinals at the end of 2021?
You and me go first?
Go for it.
Cardinals, I'm going to say they're going to be 99-63, just short of 100 wins. They are going to lose in the National League Championship Series to the San Diego Padres. I'll say 4-2.
Damn it. But that worked.
You want me to be honest?
No, that's
just to clarify, I want them to win and go, obviously, but that's my thought process.
Right.
I think for 2021, we're going to go undefeated. I don't think we're going to lose a single game. Not one. And then I think we're going to lose. We're going to lose the Atlanta Braves in the NLCS.
Man. I'm going to be the homer, and I'm going to say the Cardinals are going to shock everybody. I do this every year. I say the Cardinals are going to win it all.
Good winning percentage. Don't take Chris's answer to Vegas.
No. In all honesty, I see us going to the National League Championship Series, and even though I would give maybe a slight edge with the Dodgers over the Padres, I think everything clicks for the Padres. They've went all in this year, and even though they bounced us last season, I think they bounce us again. American League might be a little tougher to decide, but that'll be where I see the Cardinals at least getting deeper in the postseason than they did last year.
I think this is one year where the National League has more heavy hitters than the American League. You've got cream of the crop. You could have a pretty interesting playoff lineup. You got to look at the National League East. You got the Braves. Miami has been no slouch the last couple of years. They did really well last year making the playoffs. You've got the Phillies, who I think are a dark horse. Everyone talks about the Braves. I think the Phillies are going to take that division, in my opinion. I love watching the Phillies and the Dodgers play in the postseason. I hope it lines out that way. Who else do we have over there? Oh, the Mets. The Mets are going to be a tough team. There's a lot of good teams, and then you have the Nationals, who you can't forget about, who they're not as good as they used to be, but they're not a weak team by any means. In the West, you've probably got the two best teams in the league, the Dodgers and the Padres, and then you're going to have the Rockies and the Diamondbacks, and the Giants are going to be getting beat up, just like in the Central. I think you're going to have the Cardinals on top. The Brewers are going to be better than everyone thought. Cubs are going to be a little bit better than average, and then you're going to have your Reds and your Pirates, at the bottom. But the National League East is pretty stacked, but that's fine to me. Let them beat the hell out of each other.
I want to go on record as saying that Gomber will be the Cy Young winner for the National League this year.
Oh man, he's gotten roughed up spring.
We'll edit that out.
Yeah.
He did really good at first, and everybody was like, I can't believe we traded him.
I know.
You know how it goes. The Cardinals trade for somebody, and a former Cardinal has a breakout year. But man, to pitch in Coors Field, I don't envy him.
No. Like you said, though, I think it's going to be the Mets are going to fall to injury, is what I think again. Their pitching staff is just they're all on Geritol, and they're ready for me to go talk to them about Medicare. Then I just, a lot of the things coming down. Philadelphia, the day they trade Harper, they'll win the World Series because that's just the norm. I think the Padres, I think it's going to derail. I think there's too much pressure put on them, so I think the Dodgers repeat as the West champions. But I don't discount the Braves. I think they're the dark horse. Them and the Cardinals. I think the Cardinals fight the beginning of the season in the Central, but I think after that, I think they just run away with it. I think Milwaukee can't win away from home, proven fact. I think you go into the American League, the Yankees, the Blue Jays, you get over to the White Sox, it's unreal. I think the baseball is it's back. I mean, this is going to be a fun year.
Yeah, American League Central is going to be better than people give them credit for. They're usually known as the weakling of all divisions, and you're going to have the White Sox, the Twins, and the Cleveland. The Cleveland baseball team. That's what I'm going to call them because I don't know if they're changing their name or not. They're going to be battling it out. And the Royals aren't going to be slouches this year, but I don't. Those other teams are just so good. I mean, the Royals lose is just going to be because of Matheny, like in St. Louis. It's all his fault.
They did have the best spring training record, though.
They did, which, again, to reiterate, spring training numbers mean nothing. A little
zero.
Yeah. It means a little bit. That's not, at the end of the year, no one's going to be like, man, the Royals got their ass kicked. But hey, did you see their spring training number? If Carpenter goes out and has a good year, no one's going to remember spring training, except for maybe us when we do this podcast next year. And we're like, hey, remember last year?
And Cletus. He'll remember. He'll always remember.
He will remember. Never forget. Between that and the 9/11, that's his two favorite mottos. That's it. I guess we're running out of time. We got to wrap this up. It is getting late on the East Coast. Larry needs bedtime and a little bit of warm milk. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook. Facebook page and group, Cardinals Nation 24/7. By the time this is out, our live show will already be broadcasted. We're doing that tomorrow. Check Chris out on Cardinal Cuts with Chris Lawless. You can find it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Anchor, Google, anywhere you can find a podcast. You can catch me, Redbirds with Red Wine. It should be interesting now that we have the alternate site and some spring training camp underway. It won't be the same conversations that we're having here. You can find Larry Cox at one of his insurance offices located in the greater Indiana area. And I guess, Chris, anything else?
No, that's it. Everybody's excited for opening day. I know we are. I appreciate everybody again for tuning in and subscribing, but hopefully the Cardinals have a great season and it starts tomorrow when somebody wants. Yep.
Larry?
Go Cardinals.
Go Cards.
Yeah. Like, subscribe, tell your friends. We appreciate the support. Go Cards. And we're clear. Ready?
Set, go.
Chris, bring us in.
Hey guys, and welcome to the Cardinals Nation 24/7 podcast. This will be episode 9. I'm your host, Chris Lawless, and with me, as always, is our other host, Jared Redwine, and Larry Cox. How we doing, guys?
Good. How are you?
Good here.
Doing great. Are you sitting me right now? You're throwing me a curveball.
I thought you were going well.
No, I was winging it. I was like, he's just fucking with me. He's going to turn this shit off.
I might leave that in the open at the end. It's kind of a thing. We should all do it.